What is up, friends? Welcome to episode 105 of Into the Necrosphere. My guest on this episode of the show is Mikula of Ghost Bath. We are going to be talking about Loather, the new Ghost Bath record, one which I mentioned to everybody last week as having been one of the big surprises of 2021. We spoke about the making of the record. We spoke about black metal in general. We spoke about his other sideline hobby, which is fiction writing. And you will also get to hear me fuck up spectacularly on a question with regards to record labels. In my defense, Metal Archives did actually have the information wrong. But I tried my level best to make a swift recovery, as you will see in just a couple of minutes. Before we get to that, however, it is time for another demo of the week. This isn't technically a demo, but the band is unsigned. So let's call it the independent spotlight of the week. The group in question, actually a one-man wrecking crew out of Perth, Australia, called the Furor. Not the Furor, Furor. He has just put out a new record called Obliteration Matrix. Reached out to me on the Into the Necrosphere Gmail mailbox, which you can also connect with me on via intothenecrosphere@gmail.com. Told me to check out his stuff. I really liked what I heard. I think that you guys are going to like it also. So this is the Furor off the unsigned, shockingly enough, record Obliteration Matrix. And the song is called The Hammerstorm Forecast. That was the Hammerstorm forecast by the Furor of Obliteration Matrix. You can check it out on Bandcamp. I believe it is on most of the streaming platforms as well. But like I said, I have no idea why this is unsigned. I think it's absolutely excellent. I suspect that many of you will agree also. So head over to Bandcamp if you do like it and show him some love and support. And if he does ask you who sent you, let him know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere. If you want to get in touch with me, I mentioned the email address earlier. You can also hit me up on the socials. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And of course, if you are not yet subscribed to the show, then I want you to do a reverse pile driver off the top rope through 3 tables. And when you come to the very end of that devastating move, you will have hit the subscribe button, either on YouTube or Stitcher or Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you listen to podcasts on. And that way you can get a fresh new episode of Into the Necrosphere delivered to you every Tuesday for free. I will never clang my little beggar's cup asking for Patreon donations. There will very likely never ever be ad reads on this podcast. I think the only the closest I get to that is the beer that I drink on the show, and I think I was drinking an Asahi when I was talking to Dennis. But anyway, what else do I have to tell you guys? The Houston trip was cancelled. My vaccination status is not acceptable to Brandon and his gang out in America. So unfortunately, because I've only had one shot of the vaccine, I wasn't able to make it this time around. I will go next year, but hopefully relatively early on in the year. And I have to hand it to BA. They were pretty cool about making the exchange on the ticket, but I'm a bit bummed that I'm not going. But then at the same time, it has allowed me to book a number of guests for basically from now until the end of the year. And I have to tell you guys, I mean, you know that I'm a bit superstitious when it comes to these sorts of things. So I'm not going to mention the names of anybody yet, but I will say the run up from now until I'm done for the year is going to be absolutely epic if all of these come off. I think strongly Into the Necrosphere approved guests. And I will possibly have enough to actually keep me going all the way up to Christmas. Obviously, those episodes will be posted whilst I am out on safari enjoying South African wine and South African steak and upsetting vegans the world over. But yeah, you should have enough to keep you busy for quite a while. And then, of course, I will come back next year. And when I come back, it'll probably be around mid-January. And I will kick off with my best of 2021 episodes. Hoping at the moment to feature Kelly T of Slaves to the Underground podcast on one of them. And then my brother Mike Hill from Tombs and the brilliant Necromaniacs and Everything Went Black podcasts on the other. That is more or less all that I have to say to you guys before we get started for this week. After my conversation with Dennis, I will be reviewing the new Vredensdal record. You'll remember that Michael from Vredensdal was on this podcast about 30 or so episodes ago. New album is out and it's excellent. I'll talk to you all about that in about an hour and 15. And then I'll do some news as well. So stick around. Plenty of great things coming your way. But first, we speak to Dennis of Ghost Bath. And as I hit record, I don't know what time it is at your end, but I'm going to open up a Asahi beer.
Oh, super dry. I love that.
Oh yeah, well this is very, very good beer. Probably my second favorite beer, next to Camden Hells, which is fucking fantastic. But this is brewed in Japan, as you might know, the traditional enemy of your native land, China. So
I actually I had that in Japan. I went there on my honeymoon. It was I loved it. There's always like konbinis they're called. They're just like convenience stores like 7-Elevens. They always had the Asahi super dry. So we'd always go down there like late at night, grab a couple beers and a couple rice balls and go back to our hotel room. We were in Tokyo and Kyoto for about a month. So
yeah, I was just going to ask you, where in Japan did you go?
we flew into Tokyo and we were there for about 2 weeks. And then we took the bullet train down to Kyoto to do a bit more like nature, visit the temples, stuff like that, climb Monkey Mountain, all those snow monkeys running around you and like chasing each other. And those guys, they're like aggressive.
Oh, really?
I tried to feed them. And you're not supposed to look at them in the eye because they take that as like you're trying to intimidate them or something. So you can only feed them from behind a like a mesh fence. You go inside the building and then you can feed them. And I just remember I accidentally like looked at one when I was handing it the food. It just like looks at me and just like growls and like snatched it out of my hand and scared the shit out of me.
Oh, dude, monkeys can be a fucking handful. So I live in the UK. I'm originally from South Africa, but every time I go back, I'll go do some of the nature stuff there, and go to a couple of nature reserves, or I'll go on safari. There's one place that I love going to, which is a monkey sanctuary for rescue monkeys that they get all through different parts of Africa. And you take this long, lengthy hike. It's probably a good sort of 2-3 mile hike that you take through this compound where they keep them, because they keep them in the open. But they do warn you, like, as soon as if one of them turns up and they're very curious, keep your phone like in your hand, keep your wallet with you, keep your car keys with you, because they will steal it and jump into the bush and you'll never see it ever again. The one monkey had been particularly notorious for that. And the like warden, or the conservationist, or whatever they call them, he said to me that had happened in the space of about 3-4 months. He had stolen 37 phones. And he said that's why they had to kind of have like a no liability sign up at the front, because they can't keep replacing people's phones for them. But he says they never ever saw any of that shit ever again. So I don't know whether he was hawking them down the road or what he was doing. But yeah, he must have a stash of it somewhere.
I was gonna say, yeah, I wonder what a monkey would want the phone for. It's just curious about it. Like food I would get, but yeah, I don't know.
I had one like sat on my shoulder, and they are very curious, and it's a little invasive as well. They'll stick like a finger in your mouth and like pull your mouth open, stick a finger in your ear. They do a lot of stuff. There's one photo that I have where it's myself and my girlfriend, and I'm just about to start smiling for the photo, and this monkey puts his hand straight on my mouth. So,
yeah, I didn't get that close to him. That's awesome.
Yeah. What was the attraction to Japan?
Man, I don't, we almost went to like 5 different places. I just knew I wanted to go somewhere totally different from, North Dakota, where we were living at the time. We looked at like Egypt, India, like the UK. I don't know. We were just looking all over, and I was like, I think the place that'd be most different culturally, and I think it is so far from everywhere I've been, was Japan. Yeah. So I don't know. We kind of went on a whim and we like loved it there. Like I've been learning Japanese since I've been there, just for fun and for a challenge. And I don't know, it's just such a different culture, different society. Like people always ask you like, oh, what's different over there? And it's just everything. You should ask me what's the same, because, it's just such a different culture. Like I've been to Europe a bunch, and I just feel like it's basically how it is in the US. I mean, the UK is the closest to the US as far as culture and shows and hospitality and stuff. And then, Europe is kind of just, I don't know. It's just Western, I guess, is probably the reason for that.
Yeah,
that's why they call Europe Western, us Western society. So yeah, I don't know. And I've been wanting to go back ever since. That was back in 2015, I think I went to Japan, and then the pandemic happened. I've had money saved up. I am ready to buy my plane tickets. Like my friend was like, "Oh, I'm going to buy one for May this year." I'm like, "I ain't buying a plane ticket this year." I just knew it'd just probably get canceled. So yeah, I don't know. Something about it just attracted me.
we bit the bullet and we bought plane tickets to South Africa in December. Worked like over a year. The lockdown kind of morphed into this traffic light system. So it's, if a country is red, then if you generally speaking can't go there. And if you were to come back, you have to quarantine. So you have to pay like £2,500 to stay in one of their shitty quarantine hotels. And I don't know if there's armed guards, but I know they're pretty heavy-handed with making sure that you stay there. And then there's amber, which means you just need a COVID test that's negative and stuff like that, and you can go. And then green is fine. So as soon as South Africa went amber, we bought plane tickets straight away. And I mean the price of tickets, literally in the 15 minutes that I went to, add to basket through to checkout, the price of tickets went up by £500. So, everyone must have had exactly the same idea at the same time. But yeah, it's going to be weird. It's going to be weird going, actually flying again after, 2.5 years. I mean, it's really been about 3 years since my last proper holiday. And by that, I mean, getting away from home, getting away from everything that's, not I mean, because where I'm going is not unfamiliar, but getting away just from every day 24/7, because I work from home. So I think when you work from home psychologically, in my case the living room is my office, so you never get that distance anymore. And too often I found myself at sort of 11 at night, or I'll have a late night watching TV, or drinking beers, and take out the phone. All right, let me check my work emails before I go to sleep. And then it's 1 a.m. And it's like you just do shit that you never would have done pre-lockdown. But you do, outside of Ghost Bath, you're a writer, and that's kind of, from my understanding, keeping you busy full time.
Writing?
Yeah.
Or no, my full-time gig is actually and I just started doing it full-time this year, running my record label. Okay. So it's not a metal label, it's a vaporwave label, and I started that like 3 years ago in 2018, just doing like some small cassette releases, like 50 cassettes at a time, and it just kind of snowballed, bigger and bigger releases until this year, when I could finally switch to doing it full time. Writing, I would love to be a full-time writer, but that seems very, very hard to do. So I've been working on writing. I don't know how close I am to that goal yet, but I just got this house. I moved to Pittsburgh this year as well. Yeah. And I have like a room designated to be my writing room. I'm actually looking at like bookshelves right now to kind of set it up and have kind of an environment where I can just focus on writing and perfect my craft enough to be able to do that. But yeah, I always so many projects going on. So
when did that writing bug bite you?
Writing. So I know, like, I would make like little books as a kid and stuff. And I would always, I'd like staple pages together, and like, there'd be more like comics where I'd draw the pictures and have little talking bubbles and stuff like that. So I knew I've always been kind of creative, but that kind of like that writing part of it kind of fell off. When I went to maybe like middle school and I started playing guitar, and I didn't get back into it until I want to say 2011. I got really sick, and I don't know what I had. Like, I had like ulcers in my mouth. I had like a bad fever. I could like barely eat anything. And I had nothing to do. And for some reason, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to write a story, because I'm like stuck in my house and I couldn't go anywhere. I don't know. And I was like, maybe I'll try writing something kind of like H.P. Lovecraft, because that's the last thing I read. So I tried to write like a weird story that sounded like horror, like H.P. Lovecraft, like super proper sounding prose. And I wrote that, and then I posted it on some site that I can't remember the name of the site. It was like Figment or something. It used to be a site where you could just post stories and people would like give feedback to it and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. This is kind of fun. Maybe I should like try to get better at this. And so I took like some writing classes in college, and I don't know, it just, every time I wrote something, it just never turned out how I wanted it. And I knew I wasn't good. Like I could tell, you're at, I think right away I was like, oh man, I'm really good. And then I showed people, and it's one of those things where, what's that psychological thing where like if you're really bad at something but you think you're really good at it, and it's kind of like this curve, right? And then like you get decent at it, and then you know that you're not good at it, and then you get really good, and then you're good at it. So like it's just like this bell curve. Do
Like
you know what I'm talking
conscious,
about?
is it conscious incompetence or unconscious incompetent? Consciously
Yeah, yeah.
consciously incompetent and then consciously competent is
Yeah.
the yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely went through that. And I think I'm at the bottom of that curve where I know I'm okay, but I definitely know I'm not like good enough. And I can look back at my older writing and be like, oh, I've definitely improved. And the more I write, I think the better I get at it, because you have to get other eyes on it. Like you can't judge your own
Yeah.
writing. And so, when the comments started coming back a little bit more positive and more positive, then you're doing something right. And so, yeah, I've always been into reading fantasy, and so that's like my main genre that I try to write, like adult fantasy. Um,
Mhm.
like Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings. I read The Hobbit when I was a kid, Chronicles of Narnia, all those books. Um, yeah, so that's kind of like my dream job now. It's kind of weird. It just switches. It's like it was, oh, my dream job's to tour in a band, around
Mm.
the world. And then now I'm like, oh, my new dream job is to start a label. And then I did that. And now maybe I get bored with it once I achieve it. I don't know.
Well, it's you know, I think when you approach all of your goals in these kind of bite-sized chunks rather than, trying to climb the mountain all in one sprint, I do think you achieve a lot more at the end of the day. And I think I would imagine with writing, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I wouldn't even say I imagine, because I'll tell you in a second. I at one time fancied myself, an aspiring novelist, and that also started when I was very, very young. I wrote a book that was 783 pages long, and I finished it when I was 15 years old. It took me 2 years to write. I started when I was 13. And I remember reading it back, and within the first two chapters, I deleted it off my hard drive immediately. I was like,
Yeah.
"This is the biggest load of shit that I've ever read in my entire life." And I like sometimes I'm sorry that I did that, because then I also realize it's like, because I don't know, like in my mind I have a standard that's derived from the stuff that I grew up reading. William Peter Blatty, Stephen King. That to me is the standard, and if I don't come anywhere close to that standard, then to me it's trash. But then you think to yourself, actually, are you being too hard on yourself? Is it, is that kind of obsessive perfectionism, which I definitely have, and it almost sounds to me like you might have it to a degree too. Is that counterproductive when it comes to creation? I've always kind of I've often thought back to it and thought, if I had kept that and maybe tried another one and tried another one and tried another one, what would I have been able to do in my 20s or in my 30s?
Yeah. I think with writing, for some reason, I don't know if it's just me personally, is just way more difficult than music ever was, or any other creative art form. And so, but it was also something I wanted to do really bad, and I still do. And so, I mean, you definitely have to take it day by day. And, I think the best thing for me was when I was, I'd write 1,000 words a day, no matter what. And I would just make sure I got 1,000 words done. Even if I wasn't in the mood, or I didn't think, it was good, I would just finish that 1,000 words. I brought like my iPad and little keyboard on tour. I was doing it. I finished the first draft of 3 books like on the road, like in the back of the van or in hostels, wherever we were. I would just make the time, and I got pretty proficient at that. Like I could do 1,000 words in like half an hour. So it wasn't that big of a commitment. And then, all those days add up, and then eventually you're at like 500,000 words or whatever. And then and then I looked back and I'm like, well, the stuff I just wrote sounds way better than like chapter one. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think along the way, you figure stuff out, and you get the voice and the characters. And so then I just went back and I've started re-editing everything from chapter one. And I think that's really interesting with writing, because they say like you never stop learning, you never really stop getting better. And so I don't understand how you how you like say, okay, the book's done, when I don't know, if you edit the whole thing again, am I just going to go back to chapter 1 again and be like, well, now this doesn't sound as good as the end again, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's a learning process, but I have fun with it. I like to keep busy, and it's like a great way to keep busy. So,
Yeah. I was about to
yeah, I
say,
don't know.
I would imagine a productive way to keep busy as well, given all of the temptations of the road.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We would still party every night. I would do it like between sound check and us playing usually, because then I actually I make sure I don't drink before I write ever, because
Mm.
I would just have to throw it away anyway, I think. So
Yeah.
I waited, we did sound check, I would get my writing done, and then we'd party every night basically. So
I was about to
I don't
say,
think it
did you
interfered
did
with
you have
that.
time on the schedule for the writing in between the hookers and the blow? Because that's what rock stars
Yeah.
keep themselves busy with 24/7. I mean, that's
Yeah.
also like in terms of I guess modern day touring versus the old days. When you read the Guns and the Slash autobiography, or you read the Dirt, or you read the Led Zeppelin autobiography. Those were different times in comparison to now, and thank God for those people that mobile phones weren't invented in the 1970s or the 1980s.
Oh yeah. I mean, nowadays it gets as wild as you want it to, but it's not in your face at all times. You know, you can
Yeah.
find what you need if you want, but yeah.
I was about to say, I mean, it was like those guys literally had I mean, I know with Led Zeppelin as an example, I mean, their reputation preceded them to such a point that they would have to, take precautions at certain hotels that they like going to because, Led Zeppelin are coming. So most likely the room is going to be trashed. There's going to be loads of strange women coming in and out of the place. And it's nuts to me as well, the Led Zeppelin story in particular. I think Robert Plant hadn't even turned 30 years old by the time that they broke up. And I remember reading a piece with him, and he was saying like I had been in the biggest band by sales on the planet, and I hadn't even had my 30th birthday yet, and we broke up, and I didn't know what to do with the rest of my life. It's like I've achieved more than most people are ever going to achieve. Like, well, what's next for me? I can't imagine how weird that must feel.
Yeah, I can understand that on a way smaller scale, obviously, but I can see how that would make sense. Like, um, I grew up in North Dakota, a super tiny town, is about 30,000 people most of my life. So, all the things that I've done, going on tour, playing Bloodstock main stage, or releasing something on Nuclear Blast, or being in like Metal Hammer magazine or whatever it is, like you adapt to it very quickly, and you have to like remind yourself like this is awesome, like this is what you wanted, like not everyone gets to do all these things. And so when people talk to you back from my hometown, when I would talk to like friends and stuff, they'd all be like, oh man, like how's this, how's that, and I was like, oh yeah, it's cool. Like I don't know how to like, you just get used to it so quickly, and it sucks that you get used to it so quickly, because you always like imagine it's like the best thing ever, and in the moment being on stage and stuff is fun,
Mm.
but like eventually you're just like, okay, yeah, it's fun. I don't know. It's I don't know. Yeah.
So this is going to sound like an incredibly ignorant question. I'm going to apologize well in advance for it. I almost think
You're
you know
fine.
what I'm going to ask. So I know you're
You're
from
fine.
North Dakota. The Fargo TV series, especially seasons 1 through 3, and the movies, is some of my favorite shit ever. How exaggerated is what they depict there, versus what it's like living there? I mean, I know it's exaggerated without a shadow of a doubt. It's like people imagining that we could cruise around on lions in the streets in South Africa. But it always seemed to me like there was something about those movies. Like what struck me about the writing, there's like a love for the region as well as poking fun at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I will say I haven't watched the series or the movie at all. But
Really?
yeah,
Oh,
I've seen like
dude.
little scenes.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I wasn't interested because I'm like, well, I'm right here, I don't need to learn about it
Yeah.
anymore, or see. But as far as like the accents and stuff that I've seen, that I don't know. It all seems a bit more Minnesota to me than North Dakota, and
Yeah.
Fargo's right on the border of Minnesota. So yeah, I don't know. Like the general sense I get is it's more like northern Minnesota than where I was from. Like where I was
Yeah.
from are just plains. Like there's no trees. There's nothing. It's just like fields and
Oh,
like
really?
open sky. Yeah.
And you were born and raised there?
I was born in Maryland, like right outside of Washington D.C. Like,
Yeah.
and my dad was in the Air Force, and then shortly after I was born, we moved to Minot, North Dakota, which has an air base there. That's why we moved there, and they have like B-52s. That's what he like worked on or whatever. So, um, yeah, I've lived there all my life until this year when I moved to Pittsburgh.
What was the draw to Pittsburgh?
um, Mostly because I've been here a lot because my family, my dad's side of the family lives all in Pittsburgh. This is where they're from. And my mom's side of the family lives in New Brunswick above Maine, in Canada. So it's kind of closer to both sides of the family. At the same time, the housing was, you could get a better house for a cheaper price. And I wanted to be in like a bigger city with more going on because I was getting really bored of being in Minot. And actually, from Minot, I moved to Iowa, a town of 300 people on a farm for 2 years. That's when I started the record label, moved back to Minot, and then this year just moved to Pennsylvania.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
Dude, I live out in the countryside. I lived in a place called Kingston on the outskirts of London for it's probably 7 or 8 years, and I lived in London for on and off for 20 years. And then I decided, during the pandemic, I'd had enough of city living. Moved to the countryside. The closest house to us is a mile away. There is literally nothing when I go outside. Like you barely hear a car, you barely see a light. If you need to go do something outside, you need to carry a torch with you if the stars aren't out. But I fucking love it. I don't think I could ever. I don't think I could ever move back to the city.
Yeah, I liked living in North Dakota because you'd be on tour, you'd be in a different big city every night, and tons of people, tons of things to do. And then when I would get back home, it'd be kind of a relaxing place to decompress and just chill out. And I don't live like in the city of Pittsburgh. I live like 30 minutes south because I didn't want to live in the city either. So I kind of have the best of both worlds where it's quieter out here. I'm not, the neighbors are kind of far away. They're not a mile away like for you, but and then if I ever want to do anything, I just drive north like 20 minutes and I can do whatever I need. So
yeah. So how does growing up in a place like North Dakota where you grew up, how did you discover metal? How does that kind of how does metal, and particularly black metal, enter the story?
For some reason, when I was 11, I was like, we had the radio on in the car, and I just asked my dad to get me a guitar. Like I wanted to learn guitar out of nowhere. I can't even remember the exact reason. I just thought it would be fun, I guess. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll get you a guitar." And then from that point forward, I was just, looking up bands at all times, watching Headbangers Ball on MTV. And so I was on an Air Force base, and it's kind of a different culture there. There's like curfews, and there's like a place called a teen center there where you could go. There's like TVs, video games, computers. There's a music room. It was just for all like the Air Force Base kids to go kind of congregate and hang out. And in the computer room, people would always play games, but there would always be people there playing music. And that's kind of when I first discovered like heavier music. I think the first bands I ever listened to that were heavier were like Under Oath and Dimmu Borgir, which is kind of funny because Under Oath was like a Christian band and Dimmu Borgir is like black metal. So yeah, those are kind of the first two heavier bands I heard. And then from then on, I was like trying to learn that kind of stuff on guitar and just, you go deeper and deeper and more extreme and more extreme. And in that region, we didn't get like giant concerts or, I couldn't just go out and see whatever big band at the time, like Trivium, they might go to Fargo, but that was about a 5-hour drive from me. So it was nowhere I'd ever go to. So it was kind of a microcosm of music, and it was more like punk and hardcore stuff and Midwest emo type stuff where they would use clean guitars and do a lot of tapping and a lot of melody and pretty music. And I think that really has an influence on what I write. Like all the black metal I write has a lot of melody and a lot of tapping in it actually too. But I think, when I always listened to a little bit of black metal on the side growing up, but it was never like my main genre until I picked up Agalloch. And I think 2011 was like the big moment where I picked Marrow of the Spirit up off the shelf. I just saw the artwork. I was like, oh, this looks cool. I'll just grab it. It was on like the new release shelf, and I popped it in, and it was just like blew my mind. It was one of those moments where I was like, oh man, you can make music like this. Like I'd never heard anything like it, with just the blast beats and the black metal vocals, and then like the pretty sounding chord changes and melodies and cello playing and everything that was going on in that. I just loved every minute of it. And at the same time, I've discovered like depressive black metal through Silencer was the first band I heard who just stuck out to me because the vocal. Have you listened to Silencer?
Not really, no.
Oh, okay. So
I have.
okay.
I've heard you reference them a couple of times.
Yeah.
But it's. I must confess, it's not really a band that I've paid all that much attention to. Like when it comes to like DSBM, it's. I've dabbled in some stuff. Like I've listened to Ghost Bath. I've listened to Shining, obviously a lot. There's not a huge number of other bands that I've gotten into there. My love for black metal tends to be on the filthier side. So, and I think a lot of it has to do with how you're introduced to the genre. So, I had heard Cradle of Filth, I'd heard Dimmu Borgir and those bands, and I liked them. I liked Dimmu Borgir a lot, as a matter of fact, but there were a couple of bands or a couple of records that really kind of changed my perspective on music just completely. One of them was Battles in the North by Immortal. I remember hearing that for the first time and just it's literally like being tapped on the forehead by a being from another dimension. It's like, this is exactly what you need to be listening to. In the Nightside Eclipse by Emperor was one of them as well. There were a couple of things like that later on in my life. Plague Angel by Marduk. There were these records that had melody and that had an incredible atmosphere, but they were just fucking nasty, horrific records as well. I mean, Battles in the North in particular, to this day, I posted something about it on Instagram today. I mean, it's 26 years old. And if you put it on today, it will still rip your face off. And if people haven't heard it before, I mean, I don't think there's anyone listening to this podcast that hasn't listened to it yet. But if you haven't, you need to seriously pay attention to it. It's some of the best work ever stuck onto half an hour's worth of missed takes, missed cues, timing errors. I mean, it's like such a guy described it today as like a mess of perfection. That's exactly what the record is. But sorry, that was a big sidebar of what you said. But no, Silencer, to answer your original question, I've not really paid much attention to.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, they only put out one record a while ago, and so they're not really going to come up unless you look for them. They just kind of have a cult following, but he does like the super high pitched DSBM type wails, but his are like even more extreme than mine. They're like Ghost Bath vocals times 10. They're like super ridiculous sounding when you first hear it. And I was like laughing at it when I first heard it and showing all my friends like, dude, listen to that. What is this? And like showing them. And then I like slowly started liking it over time. Unironically, is one of those things, is like a slow burn. But yeah, I always had this one friend who was like super into black metal, Evan, and he did show me Immortal early on too. Now that you mention them, but the record I always had was Sons of Northern Darkness was the one I always listened to. I love that.
A pop record.
Is it?
No, well, it's Sons of Northern Darkness is a good record. It's very good, as a matter of fact. But it's as I said, there's two records for me that are essentially immortal. One is Battles in the North. The other is At the Heart of Winter. And the Art of Winter is the first time really that they kind of made that step where Peter Dachtrin at Abyss Studios started to do their production, so the production started getting cleaner. It sounded like they were spending more time trying to get things sounding perfect in the studio as opposed to the, just unholy chaos that they were summoning previously. But it's a superb record, and again, it's another one that I think really holds up. Several years later, but Sons of Northern Darkness is a good album, very, very good album. But I was going to say though, Self-Loather. So I have spoken about the album actually on my podcast a couple of times as something that I was looking forward to, because all the preview tracks that I've heard, I wouldn't say it sounds massively different to stuff that you've done before, but there's definitely like to the point that I said before about like liking that filthy black metal sound. There's definitely something a little filthier about this new music. There's something that sounds a bit more urgent, a bit more intense to me. And I think that's partly, back to this kind of stuff I like, what appeals to me about it more. And you've hinted at that as well in some of the interviews I think that you've given as well, as that this is, a more abrasive record maybe than stuff that you've done before.
Yeah, and I think that's mostly due to the other guitarists in the band and our drummer, both having their voice in the writing process, because everything previous was just me. And coming from my background and the music I liked. So we have three guitarists. So the other two guys, they came up with a lot of riffs on this, and they write from, they like death metal, they like doom metal. And so they came up with different stuff that I would have never wrote on my own. A lot of my stuff is like, I don't know, I would say my stuff is way more American sounding. And now like hearing like where you're coming from, I think that's even more apparent. I don't know. Maybe that's why, like something like Agalloch really appealed to me. Just growing up with American bands only usually.
Yeah.
And I don't know, people always like, a lot of people like hate on it. They're like, oh, I want that European sounding metal. And to me, I just think they're different things. And I like both for different reasons. And I think I figured out, at least to me, like American sounding black metal just has even the tiniest bit of like that hardcore influence. Like I remember we were on tour, and we had our driver was from Greece, and I like put on an American black metal band. He didn't know who it was. I just put it on the radio. He's like, oh yeah, like what is this? I'm like, oh, this is like a black metal band from, I don't remember what band it was, probably like Seattle or whatever. He's like, oh yeah, like here we would all say that's hardcore music. I was like, what? So I think that's kind of in there. I think maybe just because hardcore was so big in the States, and I think European metal comes more from, at least to me, it sounds more folk influenced. Like it has just that tinge of folk sound and everything. And so like usually if you like played a band for me, I could probably tell if they're European or US or Canada.
I was talking to Christian from Necrosphere about this actually, and one of the things that I said to him, I always felt that the US black metal scene was one that a lot of folks slept on, and I felt unfairly, for many years. I don't think it's the same anymore. But what I do feel, and I said this to him also, that if someone were to ask me to describe American black metal, the word earth comes to mind for me. Like earth, there's like an earthiness or like a connection with the earth in all of the great black metal bands to come out of the US. And for me, those bands are bands like Cobalt, Tombs, Wolves in the Throne Room. Those kinds of bands for me are really kind of the standard bearers as far as American black metal is concerned. But what I love about it, they all sound so incredibly distinct. They have a lot of the abrasiveness that I like, but there's kind of there's a couple of additional quite unique elements to all the bands, and that to me also appeals massively. But I definitely see your distinction there. I mean, in terms of the hardcore influence versus the folk influence. And I don't really know where that would come from. I mean, I don't know whether that's a case of, when the kids grow up at school, they're taught more about folk music. I mean, obviously in Norway, there was an incredibly strong connection to Nordic culture, Nordic heritage, which seems to me to be pretty taboo for anybody to touch on if you're a UK band or a US band, which I don't agree with. But anyway, but it a lot of bands kind of the bands that do dabble in that, like Winterfilleth, I think do it exceptionally well. But they for some reason catch a lot of flack from it. But whereas I think a lot of the American bands they sort of take this sort of esoteric approach to things, and it's less about Satan and it's more about personal reflection, but personal reflection in relation to your relationship with nature. And again, I'm going to repeat the same line that I said to Christian. That's the first beer I've had tonight, so I'm not sitting. I know it sounds like I'm rambling here a little bit, but hopefully you understand what I mean.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. I think, the first thing that came to my head when I kind of figure out that distinction was maybe just because Europe has such a longer history, like we're a super young country, and so we don't have as much United States folk music, to base stuff off of. It's not really a thing. And while in Europe, it goes back so far, the different cultures and stuff like that. And then as far as you saying, like, they still sound super distinct. I don't know. I think we're just such a big country and like separated by so many miles, like that you get like these little clusters of culture. And so, a Pacific Northwest band or bands kind of have a similar sound because they're all kind of in that region, even though they're still in the United States. They're going to, Wolves in the Throne Room, Agalloch, all those types of bands kind of have that Cascadian sound. But then, you can listen to Death Heaven, let's say. I could tell they're from California. Like they just sound like a California band to me. And, each region has its own little culture and sound and influence. So, yeah.
There's a band out of Los Angeles who I plug at every opportunity called Born Ultra. Why they have not been signed, I don't know. The lyrics are like very Lovecraftian. It's like everything is, it's like a Lovecraftian black metal band, but Jesus Christ, they're good. I think they've put out an EP and a full length. And again, why they've not been picked up, I don't know. But Death Heaven, to me, that's the product of people who are spoiled by too much good weather.
Yeah. No, it sounds sunny.
Top-notch stuff. Yeah, well, it does. I must confess, I've never been the biggest fan of Death Heaven. I don't mind some uplifting stuff in music. I don't think major chords have too big of a place in black metal though. But that's I'm not an elitist, but it's more about what personally appeals to me. I need that kind of gut punch of just something. There has to be something menacing and evil and sinister to it. And again, this is what I like so much about South Loather. I feel that's really kind of come to the fore. And it's kind of, it makes sense in terms of what you've said. If you think about Emperor as an example, Isan was always the guy that did the progressive stuff and the really sort of, the riffs with 700 notes. And it was Samoth who was the one who kind of balanced him out, because Samoth came from a death metal background. So he had that death metal sensibility to go, okay, we can just slightly chafe what you're doing here, and actually make the song sound really heavy and sound really intense. And then interestingly, the record that Emperor did, where it was just Isan writing, which was Prometheus, that's the one that, completely sort of, and in my, I know a lot of people will disagree with me on this, but for me, that one jumped the shark a little bit in terms of taking the progressive stuff too far. And to me, it became boring, and it just lost a bit of that intensity that I loved so much about Anthems to the Welkin at Dusk, Nine Equilibrium, and In the Nightside Eclipse.
Yeah, I think that mix of different backgrounds can really, make something cool. There are a lot of like one man black metal projects, obviously. Oh, yeah. I'm sure you know about that.
Oh, yes.
I don't know. And I think they're cool for a while, but I think they start hitting kind of the same note over and over. And I don't think I think it's just because it's coming from a singular mind, and like, you're always going to have your voice in there. You can't really change it. I mean, even if you try to force it, you could probably tell that it's, this person writing this record. And so when you bring other people in and like mix your backgrounds and voices, I think that's kind of where some magic can happen. And that's probably why I wanted to bring the other guys in for this album. I think I had like said everything I wanted to say with the previous Ghost Bath stuff. That was just me. And I knew like if I just write this album by myself, it's going to sound similar to Star Mourner and Moon Lover. Even if I try to make it heavy, the stuff I write is not as heavy, and I like needed their influence on it. Like a lot of the riffs, just the way they write riffs, is just not how I do it. So you can probably, if the chord progression's like super simple, or if it's in 4/4, I'm probably the one that started the song and then they added their flavor to it. If it's like something like Convince Me to Bleed, where it's like a little bit different song structure and not like 4 chords over and over, then it's probably one of them. And then I just added my influence. So what I liked for a lot of tracks, if either, John or Tim came up with the first riff or most of the riffs, I would come in and, look at the chords they were using and slightly change the chords. I love, figuring out if this chord goes to this chord, how does it feel different than if this chord goes into a different chord, and that's what I'd really like to play with. And then I would like add little melody parts over top, and I think that's why it still sounds like Ghost Bath. Like it's not completely left field or anything like that, because it still has my melody and the chord type stuff that I like. So
yeah, but I think to your point, I think that's a great way to extend your voice by having those additional voices come in and kind of, add their own flavor to certain things. But now your ideas kind of get extra legs. And I've not been in that situation myself, but I would imagine in the writing process, that's actually quite exciting to see. You can start an idea to a song, and then all of a sudden this person goes, well, let's add in this, or let's do this, let's do this. That I guess when you have the right people around you, that collaboration must be really satisfying.
Yeah, and it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. We melded very well together. I mean, these are the same guys that I got since 2015 when I needed, a live band to come with me on the road. So we've been playing together for a long time, and we knew each other before Ghost Bath even. So, we never argued about any parts or anything. My basic idea was, if it's your part, you get the final say in what it is. So if I didn't like, a certain riff or this drum beat, and I was like, no, you got to change it to this or that. If our drummer wanted it a certain way, he got the final say. And I think that really helped, expand our sound, kind of push us forward. Yeah. And I'd done that before in previous bands. Like I used to have a post-hardcore band, and we'd all write in the same room. So, for this one, we wrote Convince Me to Bleed first, all in the same room together. And it kind of set the tone for the record, and we kind of knew what we were going for from there. It's kind of a roadmap set out.
We were making the distinction earlier between Europe and the US, and obviously you guys are now signed to the biggest label in Europe. How did that deal happen?
How did that deal? Okay, so I was working at a pizza place at the time, delivering pizza, and I was in college, and I had just released Moon Lover on Northern Silence, actually. So I had like sent demos to every label I could imagine of Moon Lover, just to see if anyone would bite. And Northern Silence was the only one who got back to me. So I like signed a deal with them, put out the record. And I think it was because, some news outlets started picking it up. I think Stereo Gum was the first one. And then like a bunch of other ones like came in, like Metal Sucks or Metal Injection, or they all started writing articles. Vice wrote an article, etc. And then I got a random email from Century Media. I was like, this can't be real. Like, why are they emailing me? And it was Steve Joe. He's a great guy. I'm still friends with him to this day, but he was like, hey, like, I really like your stuff. We might be interested in it. And I was like, oh crap, what do I do? So I called our producer, Josh Schroeder, he's done a ton of records. He did the first 2 Ghost Bath records. And I was like, hey, like I'm getting hit up by this label. He's like, oh, let me shop it to all the labels I know too. And so he started, hitting up people, and one of the people is Monty Connor from Nuclear Blast. He used to work for Roadrunner.
I was about to say, formerly of Roadrunner, the guy who signed Deerside.
Yep. Yep. And then he was interested in it, and he called me like 3 times the first day. He was like trying to like get me to sign with him. It was kind of a weird experience. Like out of nowhere, he's just like, "Hey, like look at our catalog. You can have any albums you want, like whatever you want, dude. I'll just send it over." Like he was trying to like get me to sign with him. I was like, "This is awesome." So yeah, it was just through our producer. After it's kind of like a snowball. I think because Century Media wanted us, we kind of like could say, "Oh, well, this label wants us," and they're like, "Oh, well, we want you." And then, like Napalm Death hit me up, or not Napalm Death, Napalm Records hit me up, and then Season of Mist, and they all kind of followed suit. It was this weird snowball thing where, like, if one label wants you, I guess
I was about to say,
they're all interested.
word gets around, and they start going, "Hey, these guys might, are a hot commodity." I don't know whether it's Monty's influence at Nuclear Blast, but they definitely seem to me to be going back in the right direction again, because there was a period of time where Nuclear Blast were kind of like, for me, becoming a bit of a nostalgia label. And then all of a sudden, they've started to sign some really cool, edgy new bands again, and I'm glad that that's happening, because I mean they were, and for me at least, one of the biggest influences in me getting into extreme music. In part because of the Death Is Just the Beginning compilations, which came out, way back when, I think you're a decade younger than me. So when you were a wee lad, we used to watch that, and we discovered bands like Sinister and Hypocrisy and Conqueror and stuff on there, which was awesome. And then we also, living in South Africa, we used to order out of the Nuclear Blast catalogs. So we used to literally get them from Germany, call to Germany, and then order CDs from there. And then the 2-month, 3-month wait for the shit to arrive and clear through customs, and then it's like Christmas. All your Christmases come at once. But yeah, I've always had a huge amount of love for them, specifically for that reason. So I'm glad to see that that they seem to be getting back on track again in terms of breaking fresh talent, because I mean they were, for a period of time, I mean they were a little bit like Season of Mist or Debra Morty have become now, where if there's a band on that label, it's generally a guarantee that it's, at the very least, it's worth listening to.
Yeah, there's a lot of labels I like, the ones you mentioned, and who else do I like looking at? Like I Void Hanger, I like them.
Great,
I like
great label.
Dark Descent, I think is what they're called, and Profound Lore. I like a lot of their stuff. Yeah, I'm not really sure about that whole transition to like what they're signing now compared to before, because I hadn't really been following them too closely, I guess, when I was growing up. I mean, I knew who they were, and I knew some bands on it, obviously, like Dimmu Borgir and stuff like that. But yeah, they're definitely signing a lot of black gays now, because they just signed Mole, who are awesome, from Denmark. I don't know if you know them. They're closer to sounding like Def Heaven, so maybe you don't like them as much. But
I'm about to say, as long as they don't sound like the new Def Heaven record, because I'm sorry,
not that
not to bash on them, but that record fucking sucks. To me, that is The Emperor Wears New Clothes in musical form. I have listened to it multiple times, going, what am I missing here? Because the thing is, I'm not a close-minded person at all. I'm one of the few people that fucking, stuck with Paradise Lost through Gothic, Shades of God, Icon, Draconian Times. When Host came out and everyone's like, they're rubbish, they sound like Depeche Mode, I was like, this is great. I'm down with whatever they have to share with me. I didn't even, unlike some I know, I didn't even burn my Metallica CDs when Load came out. So I'm open-minded enough to go where you want to take me, but you have to take me somewhere I want to be, because this new Def Heaven album is for sure not where I want to be. I mean, that's, if people listen to that and then they tell me that I don't listen to Radiohead because it sounds too commercial, you can fuck off. It's as simple as that. But anyway, sorry. I digress. I did have a question, actually, just business wise, and again, it's out of curiosity more than anything else. But this being the first record that you guys are putting out on Nuclear Blast, how has the build up differed in putting out Self-Loather to anything that you guys have done previously?
Oh no, this is the third record we put out with Nuclear Blast.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Why did I think this was?
I was like, sorry. I had to comprehend that question for a second.
I'm 41 years old, and also I'll blame this on the overdue symptoms of long COVID.
Oh, okay.
memory
Fair
is
enough.
not what memory is not what it should be. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the build up, in terms of the support that you get from them, what is it like in comparison to what you've experienced previously?
Let me think. It's like having like a whole team of people. Um, it's like trying to communicate the same thing to like three different people at once. Like there's a lot of miscommunication this time around. I don't know what it is. I know they just got bought by like a different company. I know that they're like acquired or something. I'm not sure who bought them, but I know there's different owners now, and they hired like a whole PR team. There's like a lot more people this time. So the first two records was like, I had like a UK person, a Europe person, and a US person, Monty. And that was basically everyone who I was talking to. I did talk to like the warehouse guys, but like this time around, it's like I have this social media person, I have UK, Australia, Germany, all these different people. And they're like, okay, you have this interview at this time. And it's like this crazy scheduling thing where, like today I have like 4 different interviews, and I've had more interviews this time around than any time before. But I'd recommend Nuclear Blast to anyone because they actually care, and they actually put the work in for your record. There's so many labels that'll just like press some albums and just put it up on Bandcamp basically. Mm-hmm. Nuclear Blast like actually tries to get you interviews.
Of Instagram posts, and they think they've done their bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like that's not Nuclear Blast at all. And I'd recommend them to anyone. Like I remember the first time we went to Europe, we played in Transylvania at some festival in like a fortress, and Stefan from Alcest at the time was drumming for Sylvain, which is a black gaze band. And he was like, "Oh yeah, like Nuclear Blast was talking to me. Do you think they're good or whatever?" And I was like, "Yeah, dude, you should definitely sign with them," because can't remember who they were with before that. Prophecy maybe from France or something. But yeah, I was like, definitely signed with Nuclear Blast, and they have since. So I hope they're happy with it now. I haven't talked to them in a little bit. But yeah, it gives you this. The main thing it gives you is just people look at you like you're a legitimate band all of a sudden. Like that's like anyone you talk to, they'll like answer your emails all of a sudden, that kind of thing. They're like, oh, well, they're on Nuclear Blast. It's kind of like a stamp of approval in the metal world or something, I guess.
Yeah. Have you gotten any freebies at restaurants and things like that? Or can you walk into a restaurant yet and go, hey, listen, I don't want to be that guy, but I am Dennis from Ghost Bath. So I know to make a reservation, but I need a table.
Maybe nothing that extreme. I mean, if I go back to like Minot, maybe the bar is there or something, they'll be like, oh, Dennis, give you some free drinks. That's probably the extent of that kind of thing. Yeah.
But it's interesting again what you say about Nuclear Blast and the level of support that you guys are getting for records that you put out now. Like I remember a time where I remember talking to Peter Dolving, formerly of The Haunted, and he went on a fucking 25-minute tirade about record labels and how terrible they are, and don't sign with them, and bands should be putting out their music independently. This was back in like 2007, 2008, and there definitely did seem to be for a while this kind of groundswell of voices coming up saying, the day of the record label is done, blah blah blah. That seems to have changed, but I do think all the complaining also seems to have paid off, because all of the best labels I do, whenever I speak to anybody, they will always be very forward in saying, they actually really put the work in to make sure that this record is doing well, or that this record gets heard by people. And I would imagine that's probably part of a response to the complaints, but equally part of the fact that there's so many bands coming out right now and so many great releases. I mean, there's frequently there'll be weekends where, you know, it's new release Friday and there's 5-6 albums that are good and that are worth listening to, and then you kind of get to the end of the year lists, and I've decided this year I'm potentially going to kick out my end of year episode to the beginning of 2022, because you just don't have time to get through everything. And then you do your list and you're like, you know, all chuffed with yourself, and then you see somebody else's list and you're like, I don't know that band, I don't know that band, I don't know that band, and then you're kicking yourself because you never tried them. They should have made it onto the list. It's definitely a lot more competitive from a release perspective, and I would imagine once everything kind of goes back to normal in 2025 and, you know, Fauci has kicked the bucket, it's going to be really, really difficult from a show perspective as well, a touring perspective, because everybody is so eager to get back on the road. But equally, you can't get into a situation where there's, you know, shows every other day in a major city.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're dealing with right now, basically, because things are slowly starting to open up. You know, some of my friends are out on the road, and for us, we didn't have a record, we didn't have anything planned. We weren't gonna tour at all in 2020. Really, that wasn't our plan. Our plan was to, you know, beginning of 2021 maybe start touring. And, you know, everything's filled up. Every festival is like, oh, well, we're just pushing our lineup from 2020 or 2021 to 2022. So there's no spots, sorry. Or, you know, everyone has their tours lined up. You know, we have the headliner, the supports, and the openers, and we're just going to push that same lineup. And so there's like nothing to get on, nothing to jump on. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're definitely experiencing that right now. I'm not sure if we'll even get to tour on this record. Like right now, I'm just like, if we get to tour, it's like a plus for me, but I'm not like holding any hope that it's going to happen, because I think I'll just get disappointed, or things will just close down again and everything gets canceled anyway. Yeah. So yeah. For on the labels, I think it just depends like what your goals are. Like if you're trying to make a living just off your music, I mean, it could go either way, but you know, if you run things yourself, you're going to make a lot more money right off the bat. But, you know, I think your ceiling potential kind of is lower to how big you can actually get without the support of an actual label. For me, you know, I'm not trying to pay the bills with Ghost Bath. So it was kind of a no-brainer to be like, yeah, let's sign, you know, with a label that can actually get our name out there. And, you know, even though they're taking a cut for the work they're putting in, that's completely fine with me. So,
Well, it's also, and again, to your point about credibility, it's the same label that has currently Testament and Slayer on their roster. You know, we know Slayer are never going to release a new record again, but Testament are fucking metal royalty as far as I'm concerned. I think if there were any true justice in the world, they would be spoken of in the same hushed tones as the big four. They would be the big one, Testament, and then everyone below them. That's just a side note. But you know, touring and things like that, would the fact that there's like so much, I guess, kind of, you know, traffic on all of these festivals and things like that, or there's this logjam, I should say. Would that potentially open up opportunities for you to go and tour further afield, like Australia? I mean, you know, you mentioned going on honeymoon in Japan. I know there's a pretty sizable metal scene in Japan, and I would imagine you guys would do pretty well there. Would that maybe not be an avenue for you to explore?
Definitely. We all want to go to that region, like Australia, New Zealand, maybe Japan, China. We even had wanted to plan Southeast Asia. You know, that whole region would be awesome, but I think Japan's like completely closed off. You can't even fly there right now. The last time I looked, it could have changed.
I know Australia, it's like
Australia, yeah, same.
Fucking Gestapo over there, but I'm not sure about Japan. Hold on.
Yeah, so I mean, that would work if the countries were open to play shows at.
I was about to say, I take that back. Japan, it says Japan extends emergency measures as cases surge. So, yeah, I won't be going there for a while.
yeah. I thought they were like getting better. I'm like, yes, I can finally go back there to visit. And then they like declared another emergency. And so I was like, well, fuck that. I guess I'm not.
Well, they tend to be very skittish there as well. Because there's someone who works for me who lives in Singapore. And I know it's not the same, but they seem to follow a similar kind of pattern. And literally, like anytime there's 3-4 people that have COVID, right, lockdown again for the next 2 weeks, it's they go into kind of, they go to extremes pretty quickly.
Yeah, and they're more like a, what do you call it, collectivist culture compared to, the Western like individualist type culture. So
Yeah.
they're all about, I mean, they were, when I was there, they were wearing masks when they were sick, just so they wouldn't, get each other sick, and super clean country too. So I can imagine with this going around, they're gonna take precautions. And yeah, I mean, I did everything I could to sort of set us up to be able to tour in Japan specifically, and Australia and China. I like talked to our Chinese label we first put our album out with. And I was like, hey, can you help us out with shows? And we had kind of that plan ready. And then in Japan, I got us a license deal with Ward Records. And so Star Mourner came out in Japan. So we have like a CD with like a cool Obi strip that has like the Japanese writing on it and everything. So I was kind of like preparing the way for us to be able to get over there. But right now it's just that seems even less possibility than touring over here with the whole log jam and everything.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, if I could pick, to tour in any region right now that I wanted, that's the region I'd pick, honestly. Because I've been wanting to play
kills
over
two
there
birds
so
with
bad.
one stone. You can go visit again and play.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm pretty sure they'd love you over there as well. And I was going to ask you whether you're still in touch with the folks from Pest Productions. They actually reached out to me about probably a year ago and sent me a load of their stuff. And some of it I really liked. I mean, my favorite record of last year was actually put out by Pest Productions, the Utkana debut, Next Fornix, which I thought was phenomenal. There's another band that they have on there called Vengeful Spectre, which is a very cool name for a band, but the music is really good as well. And like years prior, when I was writing for Metal Sucks and Chronicles of Chaos, I actually used to license out my articles to a printed magazine in China as well. So I've got 3 cover stories in in China on a magazine that, by all accounts, was it was a really well done magazine. Obviously, I couldn't understand jack shit about anything that was printed in there. All I could see was picture of Deicide and then Jackie Smith, and I was like, yay, look at all this. But they've got a decent metal scene over there.
Yeah. So I could, Japan and China, obviously very different places. Like I could read, the stuff that came out in Japan, since I've been studying it for a while. I'm not fluent in Japanese by any means, but Pest Productions, I haven't talked to him in quite a while. It was kind of a weird whole situation with the whole us being from China thing, because the person who like all the journalists were talking to was just some random guy in South America who worked for Pest or something. So I'm like, I don't even know what was going on. I was like, these people don't even know like what they're doing, what
I was
they're
about to say,
researching.
you kept that ruse up, from what I could tell, until 2015 when you had that interview with Noisy. But I mean, you guys have been around well before then, right?
Yeah, I just had a EP in, I think, the end of 2013 or beginning of 2013, and then Funeral came out on Pest in 2014. And like there's a little bit of a language barrier, so I didn't really have like super in-depth conversations with the guy who runs it. His name's Dang Zhang. But he seemed pretty cool. I mean, he released us, he said, because I like the music. And like I hit the last time I hit him up was probably about touring over there. And I was like, where can we play? And he gave me all the cities kind of along the east coast of China. And, he said, we could probably help you get shows all along here. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And it never came to fruition really. Flights and all that are
When you
kind
started
of
saying
difficult
first class flight only, 5-star hotel,
yeah.
Picked up with by a limo at the airport, or else I won't show. So last question for you. I noticed that you have you're sitting on a Secret Labs chair, which I'm sitting on also. Am I to assume that you're a gamer as well when you're not writing or playing music?
Yeah, I play quite a bit of games. Like recently, I've mostly been trading crypto stuff, so I've been like deep into that. Like, but the last game I was playing heavily was New World, that MMO by Amazon, and I just got super bored of it. So
I was about to
I
say,
haven't
is that
given it
any
a
good?
bit.
Because I've never been a big MMO fan. I have a friend who's massively into it, and he wants me to play. He wants me to try New World with him, which I said I would. I played PoE with him for a hot minute, and that I really enjoyed. But it's also one of those things where it's like, Jesus, I don't have time to put in fucking 600 hours into this the way that you do. As much fun as it was, but yeah, is New World any good?
It was good for like 80-ish hours, and then I was like, okay, it got really repetitive, which a lot of MMOs do, but I don't know, it didn't feel as big or as realized as a lot of MMOs I've played. I think I mostly played it because it was something new, and like a new one hadn't come out in a while, and I've played through a lot of the older ones. So I mean, all the mobs are kind of the same throughout. So it's
Mhm.
like you're fighting a zombie guy at level 10, you're fighting the same zombie guy at level 40. That's just, a higher level. So you get kind of bored with that. The combat's kind of fun, the PvP. So if you like, fighting other players, that's pretty fun. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I play a lot of MMOs. I think that's my main type of game I like. Like I remember on the road we'll play like RuneScape on our phones and stuff like that. We we would like, a lot of people do this joke, like there's a lot of memes with RuneScape, and we would like be in the middle of like, I don't know, we'd be in Berlin and we just played a show, and then there's like this giant party afterwards, because in Europe a lot of the times they'll have like a dance party after a metal show at the same venue, and then we would take pictures of ourselves, like we'd just be sitting there like cutting trees in RuneScape with like all this crazy stuff happening around us. Like, it's just funny. But yeah,
Yeah.
I just like grinding it out on MMOs, I
I
guess.
was about saying now, outside of the MMOs, you're sticking it to Wall Street, sticking it to the man on with the crypto trading.
Oh yeah. Man, that's how I bought this house, honestly. Like it's
Really?
crazy shit. Oh yeah.
Did you ever get into the whole Wall Street bets shenanigans? You know the guys that
Um,
shorted. No, they didn't short. They basically outdid the short on GameStop.
yeah, they're trying to do the squeeze. So that's when, no, I had been in stuff before that. So I was a bit late to that, and I knew I was late, so I never bought like, the GameStop or they were doing like AME too, like the theater
Yeah,
stock.
yeah.
Um, but like it got me interested, and I almost bought GameStop. I was like looking at it. I had my like Trade America account open, and I was like, it's too high priced, and I like didn't buy it. But my guitarist Tim, he showed me, how to buy these crypto coins and decentralize, like all this crazy stuff you have to do with getting different wallets and sending it and transactions and all that stuff. And he first got me into it, and I bought in January was when I really got into it. He's like, Dennis, you got to check out this coin, is Shiba Inu coin or something. I'm like, oh, okay. I'll just like buy a bit of it just to learn, because I don't know what I'm doing at all. And so he like took me through each step, and I put like 500 in just to try it out. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And he's like, yeah, you can just like leave it and it'll just stay in your wallet. I'm like, I'll just take out the money. So I like sold it right away. And if I had kept the money in there, I think I would add like $200,000 just from that right now,
Shit.
because it just like shot up like crazy. So
Yeah,
yeah, I've
yeah.
just been, man, it's a weird world. It's like its own culture, and like, you'll buy a picture of a cat for $1,000 and sell it for 10,000 like 2 days later. It's just insane. So
Mhm.
right now, when like, I feel like that's not going to last forever. Like it's kind of
Well,
like a boom.
I was about to say the regulators have been the government is trying to find a way to regulate it as best they can. As you were talking about it, I just googled crypto regulation, and I mean the headlines are full of it. So Bloomberg, crypto is failing as money, regulators can save it, and then crypto regulation is coming. How do policymakers get it? And it's like, I mean, they anywhere where they see people having just a slight leg up, it's like, okay, well, we need to put a stop to this.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's always that. Like that might just crack down everything and just tank everything at any moment. So my idea right now is just, I'm spending pretty much every day since I work from home anyway, just focusing on that because I don't know how long it'll last. So I'm like, I might as well make money while it's booming and while, it's possible to do so. Um, but I don't know, at the same time, like, yeah, there's all the regulations. I think it's becoming more mainstream in a lot of ways because, you know, I'll turn on like the stock TV channel like I did this morning when I woke up, and they're talking about crypto now, which they never did for like the past few years when I first got into it. And they're just talking about Bitcoin like another stock. So I think it's becoming more mainstream. And then, I don't know if you heard Facebook was changing their name to Metaverse, and
Yeah,
that's
I
a
heard about
crypto
that.
metaverse.
That was done yesterday, right? They announced that yesterday. They said like, we can't wait to show you what the future is like in the metaverse.
Yep. Yep. And, a lot of platforms like Robinhood that was just stocks is incorporating crypto. And so a lot of people are getting into it. And I'm seeing a lot of friends who I never thought would be into that stuff just randomly will post about it. So I think it, as long as like no insane like regulations happen, I think it's just going to be massive. And so my idea is if I'm in now and then it becomes like huge, I could probably make a pretty good penny on that.
All right, my
That's
brother. Well,
awesome.
listen, thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed talking to you. And, I as we're recording this, Self-Loather officially gets released tomorrow. So I'm very confident it's going to do extremely well for you. And I hope I get to see you on these shores at some time or at some point in the future.
Yeah, me too. If we're ever over there, just send me an email or message or something so I
Yeah,
know
no,
that you're gonna be
I
there.
will do for sure. Hang
Cool.
fire for 2 seconds. I'll hit stop and I'll just say something to you offline. That was a track called Convince Me to Bleed by Ghost Bath off their new album Loather, available right now on Nuclear Blast Records. Thanks to the Nuclear Blast folk for helping me get this set up, and thanks also for Dennis for not only being a very entertaining but also a very accommodating guest. Like I said, because I keep it real, I wanted to leave in the fuck up that I made with the labels. But like I said, in my defense, it was incorrect on Metal Archives. And I had it in my head that, they had been signed to Nuclear Blast for longer, but as I was kind of thinking of stuff I wanted to talk to him about, obviously labels came up, and I looked, and it said that everything bar this record had been put out on a different label. So hence the question, and hence the embarrassment. But I thought I'd share it with you, uncut and unvarnished, because that's the way we do things on Into the Necrosphere. Anyway, let's move on now to new music. And I mentioned earlier on, I'm going to talk about the new Vredensdal record. The album is called Silence is Eternal. It's the follow-up to The Tyrant Shade, which Kelly T of Kelly T Black Metal Reviews and now Slaves to the Underground podcast fame introduced me to. I really like that record. This record to me is so good, however, that it will possibly make me never listen to The Tyrant Shade again. Actually, maybe a little facetious to say, but it really is an enormous step up on what Michael had done previously. And I think part of the reason why it's such a step up is it's less of a record that is in love with its influences than it is a record that is born of its influences. And I think that becomes pretty clear right from the off. There's a track that starts off the record called Cold Northern Hellscape. It starts off with this really kind of almost swampy, clean played guitar intro, when you hear kind of these sounds in the background. And as much as the song is called Cold Northern Hellscape, there's something about it that reminds me of heat and warmth, and like I said, like the swamps of New Orleans. And then all of a sudden it kicks into this riff that is just some of the most fucking chest-pumping, badass black metal that I've heard this year. And, that's saying something because the competition has been very, very fierce. But I mentioned it to Michael on Instagram after I'd first listened to the record, and I said, last time when he and I spoke, we both spoke about growing up in a, very religious household where, music was forbidden, and, there was that thrill to hearing Slayer, or there was that thrill to hearing Immortal or Deicide, or, stuff that you knew in the back of your mind, or at least thought in the back of your mind that you weren't supposed to listen to. But then when you heard it, it just... It was so good to be so bad. Anyway, he has somehow, and as I mentioned this because, like I said, when that riff kicks in on Cold Northern Hellscape, he has somehow managed to wrap that feeling and that excitement that I used to get as a young blood, listening to stuff that my parents forbade me to, into not only the first song but into the entirety of the record. And it is a record that I think flows extremely cohesively, again, far more cohesively than Tyrant Shade, in part because I feel like he's got more of a set, stable, clear vision for this, rather than going, I want to worship Bathory on this song, or I want to pay tribute to Celtic Frost on this song. Those influences are definitely still there. There's probably more of a second wave of Scandinavian black metal vibe to a lot of the songs too. But, from start to finish, absolutely top-notch. And then he really does end up saving the absolute best for last. The title track is the track that ends the record. It's about 9 minutes long. It is complex, dark, brooding, just absolutely fantastic. So, once again, I have said this before, but I will repeat it because I think it bears repeating here. There's a reason why I'm not going to be doing my 2020 or best of 2021 episodes this year, and that is because there is just simply too much good stuff coming out. And I do feel that I need to give every record a proper listen before I come up with that list, so that at least that list means something. Will this be a contender for that list? Hell fucking yes. And I am going to prove that right now with a song called Misanthropy. Misanthropy, or Misanthropy, I believe, actually, is the correct pronunciation of the song, by Vredensdal off the record Silence is Eternal. And if you liked what you heard, great news, friends, because Michael's going to be back on the show again next week. I recorded that episode about just under a week or so ago, actually. And it was a good one. We did a track-by-track rundown of the record. Good to find him in great spirits as well. And I think, frankly, he's bowled over by the response to the album because, it has been huge so far. And I would hope that I played a wee part in that happening. But like I said, the album is Silence is Eternal. It's available on Screaming Skull Records. You can check it out on Bandcamp. Show Michael some love and let him know who sent you. But for sure, one of the surprises of 2021, alongside Ghost Bath. This one, maybe not surprised by the quality as much as I'm surprised that he turned it around so quickly. And he'll talk about it on next week's podcast, but there is a fourth Vredensdal record in the works as well, which is super exciting. But on the topic of new music and new releases, let's head over to Metal Storm and check out some of the latest metal news headlines. Right, first headline, Blood Truth premiere new track. Death metal bringers Blood Truth have launched a brand new single entitled Slaught to Eradicate, taken from their new EP, The Walls of Oblivion. Check it out via YouTube below. Neither band name nor song title nor EP title suggests to me that it's going to be my bag. But if you guys want to check it out, then do so and let me know what you think. August Burns Red, total shite. Extermination Dismemberment, when you want to make sure the motherfucker is really dead. The first actual news item that I think is worth taking note of, and that I think all of you should take a note of, Plebeian Grandstand is streaming entire oncoming full-length. 1 week prior to the official release day, Deborah Morty Productions have decided to offer a full stream of Plebeian Grandstand's soon-to-be-released record, Rin Ne Suffit. You can listen to the entire effort by heading over here. I've listened to this and it's fucking excellent. Like I said when I reviewed... what was the record that I reviewed? Doodsvanger. I do think Deborah Morty kind of feels like they're doing the same thing that they did last year, where they're waiting for the end of the year to break out the big guns. Last year it was Selpst, Ecclese, and Aversio Humanitatis. This year, it's Plebeian Grandstand, it's Duisfanger, and it's Archgoat, and all three of those records are fantastic. So they've had a hell of a year as a record label. Although I do have a wee bone to pick with them, if they are listening to this. A while back, I reached out to one of the guys there about interviewing Nas from Ecclese. He came back, said Nas would be up for it, but wouldn't want to be on video. I said absolutely fine. I've had a couple of folks on here before. It means that I just put like a graphic over their face or whatever the case may be. And I have chased him multiple times since and heard nothing. So I don't know whether that's Nas being a salty old so-and-so, or maybe he's just busy. I know he's going on tour, or actually Ecclese is going on tour early next year. So it might be that, but either way, their stock price has dropped by at least 4 points as a result of giving me the old cold shoulder there. Converge share another song with Chelsea Wolfe. I am a big fan of Chelsea Wolfe. I'm also a big fan of Converge. I listened to the first track that they released off of this. The effort, I believe, is called Blood Moon 1. It's very, very cool. Very, very different, I think, for both of them. But at the same time, kind of what you imagine a collaboration between the two would sound like. But really enjoyed it, and looking forward to the rest of this. It's out on November the 19th, so 4 days from whence I am recording this. What else is going on here that is worth me paying any attention to? Unleashed reveal, "You are the warrior!" Exclamation. Single and video 2 days before Swedish death metal legends Unleashed will put out their new album, or new studio album, No Sign of Life. The Einherjar Legions of Asgard released their third single, "You Are the Warrior!" The latter is accompanied by an official performance video transforming the intensity and force of the song and the story behind it. Everything I've heard off of this record so far I thought was mucky muck, and I've never liked Unleashed. I remember I heard Unleashed for the first time also on MTV, Headbangers Ball. I think it was on an Into the Pit segment, doing a song called Before the Creation of Time. And even at that point, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is like the most Xeroxy, boring, derivative nonsense I have ever heard. And what I heard of that new record suggests to me that they have not changed. Next up, we've got more news by Darkwoods My Betrothed. They are going to be featuring at NerdCon 2021. No. As part of their soon-to-be-released comeback record, Angel of Carnage Unleashed, the Finnish foursome Darkwoods My Betrothed cloak the world and themselves in a veil of damnation with their third single and final harbinger of doom and destruction, Black Fog and Poison Wind. That, from my understanding, is the name of the vocalist's two cats. Napalm Death share new video. Napalm Death are pleased to be able to continue to promote their current studio album, Throes of Joy in the Jaws of Defeatism, with the release of a brand new video for one of the tracks, Contagion. Video directed by Mark Nickel and Luba Generalova. It is a fantastic song. It is a fantastic record. I love Napalm Death. Even though, as I've said before, politically, perhaps I don't have a huge amount of alignment with the members, Barney in particular. But, that being said, I rag on the folks on the very far left an awful lot on this segment of the podcast. But I do find that actually quite a lot of my friends are rather left-leaning. And a lot of folks I actually get on with really, really well. I think some people are a little bit more understanding and a bit more accepting of other people's points of view. And, when you have that, it's actually quite fun because you get a different perspective on things. And I've found quite a few of my perceptions have been challenged. Maybe not my mind completely changed, but at the very least, they make you think they make you think about things in a different perspective. So I still say I would not mind having Barney on the show. My only fear is, like I said, if it went down that track, I love Napalm Death too much to want to be in the position where I come to the conclusion that one of my favorite vocalists thinks I'm an asshole. Hopefully he won't, but you know what I mean. Okay, let's move on to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music. Mayhem and Watain announce March-April 2022 North American tour. I was under the impression that I am seeing Mayhem in April, so I would assume they're going to be coming straight from there to the UK. This tour is called the Sanguine Sodomy of North America Tour 2022. I myself am not the biggest fan of Watain, but this is probably a pretty decent bill for anybody that is in it. Certainly, if you're a fan of both, you're going to be creaming your little leather trousers, and seems like support comes from US blackened speed metal punks Midnight. Playing a lot of shows all over the US. And based on what Ghoul said when he was on the podcast the last time, those shows should hopefully be pretty visually spectacular as well. Watch Metallica perform Damage Incorporated live at Welcome to Rockville. I'm not so interested in this. However, another incident that occurred at Welcome to Rockville was Sophia, I believe the woman's name is, the lead singer for a band I've never heard of in my life called Brass Against, took a quite literal big steamy piss on the face of a fan. So anyway, there's a massive deal being made about this and a huge outrage, obviously. It seemed to me like the young man was rather enjoying himself. He's on the video that I saw, the video clip I saw has him on stage, and she is busy doing a cover of some fucking nonsense Rage Against the Machine song. Kind of half squats above him, and I don't know how much water she'd been drinking, but it is a torrent of urine. But he can't seem to get enough of it. So, for all the folks that are saying that, he was victimized and what she did was obscene and horrible, I don't know, define obscene and horrible if he's into it. Speaking of obscene and horrible, Alex Jones blasts Gene Simmons over anti-vaxxer comments. Are you stupid or are you consciously evil? Let's read. Conspiracy promoter, that's funny. And right-wing media personality Alex Jones has blasted Gene Simmons for calling unvaccinated people the enemy. In an appearance on Talk Shop Live's Rock and Roll channel last week, the KISS bassist and vocalist said that many people were turned away from the band's recently completed KISS cruise because they were not vaccinated. All guests on the cruise, which was on a Norwegian cruise line boat, were required to be vaccinated against COVID-19. I myself, as I said earlier on in the show, have recently suffered similar hardships because Brandon and his mates, who decide on the border policy for North America, decided that no longer does my recovery from COVID allow me to get through the old turnstile and into the land of the free and the home of the brave. Now it will take 2 vaccine shots, and because I've only got 1, unfortunately, I had to beg and plead for a refund, or at least an e-voucher on my ticket. But anyway, Gene Simmons says, if you're willing to walk among us unvaccinated, you are an enemy. This whole idea, this delusional, evil idea, that you get to do whatever you want and the rest of the world be damned is really terrible, he added. We've got to identify those people and bring them out in the open so you know who they are. Jones, who runs a website which has been repeatedly accused of disseminating fake news and conspiracy theories, responded to Simmons' comments via a video message on the InfoWars YouTube channel. InfoWars YouTube channel, I'm not so sure about that because wasn't InfoWars banned from YouTube? Anyway, he said, as transcribed by Blabbermouth, I've got a very important message for Gene Simmons, or as he's known, the Demon. You claim that we're evil because we don't want you and Big Pharma to literally rape us with your Frankenshot GMO. And then you claim that we're going to get you sick and we're going to die if you don't take the shot. I thought the shot protects you. They admit that it doesn't protect you. That was all a lie. Anyway, I'm trying to do my best, but possibly the worst Alex Jones impression ever. I'm going to say this. I'm not anti-vax myself. Like I said, I got my first shot, so unfortunately the scam of a religious exemption to be able to get me into Houston also wasn't going to work. But I do think that a broken clock can be right twice a day. And one thing that I don't like and I don't appreciate, and I think if anything, it's going to make a lot of folks who were vaccine hesitant previously even more so, is the vociferous attitude towards people who are not wanting to get vaccinated. And this idea that they should be locked down separately, or they should be, barred from restaurants, or they should be fired from their jobs. It certainly doesn't inspire confidence in the vaccine. I mean, it's a little bit like I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Vredensdal, about growing up in a religious home. One of the things that I always struggled with growing up in with kind of Christianity all around me, aside from the singing of hymns and having to waste 2 hours of my Sunday in church, was this idea that you have free will. But if you don't choose to believe in everything the Bible says, then you will go to hell and be tormented and tortured for all eternity. And the two things never made any sense to me. How could it run in tandem that you got free will, but by the way, if you don't choose what we want, then it's misery and torment for you for all eternity. It's kind of the same thing with a vaccine. Everybody's pushing the vaccine like it's this is supposed to this is going to change your life. It's going to, well, not going to change your life. It's going to it's going to give you freedom. It's going to mean we can go back to normal, etc., etc., etc. But if you don't want to get it, we're going to fuck up your life as much as we possibly can, and call you out and call you scum and call you a Nazi, etc., etc., etc. I don't think that's the way to win hearts and minds if you're on a campaign to get people vaccinated. And if anything, I think that will create more vaccine hesitancy, not less. Because the reality of it is, this vaccine was sold as something that gets us back to normal. It's clearly turned out now that that's not the case, because I see that the Netherlands, which is 70% vaccinated, are about to go into another lockdown. There's widespread concern in Singapore because because Singapore, which is 85% vaccinated, is seeing a spike in the death toll over there for COVID. So I think the vaccine was missold to us, certainly at the very beginning, as something that is supposed to immunize you against COVID-19. Turns out it doesn't immunize you against it. It lowers the seriousness of the symptoms once you get it. But then again, also plenty of research to suggest that if you've had it and you've recovered, then you're more likely to not get it again, or at the very least not get it as severely. In my case, it was a little different. I got it, and then it was shit, but I got over it pretty quickly, and then I got a breakthrough case, and it was fucking horrific. Although I am starting to suspect that first one may have been a false positive, of which I know there's been many. As a matter of fact, where I got tested, there was a whole big to-do about false positives coming out of there. But either way, I just think we're going down a very, very, very slippery slope, this business of trying to strong arm people into taking or putting something in their body that they don't want to do. And if you believe that the vaccine is going to protect you from it, then surely it's your business, and you can leave people that don't want to do it alone. Because you're protected by the vaccine. So that's the way I see it. I know folks will probably differ with me on that, and you're more than entitled to do that. But I just that's the way I see it. And I think either way, like I said, screaming and yelling and trying to strong arm and cudgel people into taking the vaccine is definitely not going to. It's for sure not going to change anything. That's not going to change their minds, I don't think. Next up, we've got Lamb of God's Randy Blythe sharing practical info regarding crowd safety following the Astroworld tragedy. Astroworld, of course, was this clusterfuck that happened on the 5th of November where Travis Scott, the rapper, there was some sort of stampede in front of 40,000 fans. I believe 8 people are dead, 300 people are seriously injured. Of course, there is now rumors going around about Satan worship and satanic rituals. I'm not so sure that those are prevalent at a rap show, but I might be wrong. But either way, naturally, Randy saw that as an opportunity to step up and give us yet another lecture. So he writes on Instagram, tonight my band Lamb of God will play in front of thousands of people at the Welcome to Rockville Festival in Florida. In light of the deaths at the Astro World Fest in Houston, I'm posting some practical info. I will not retroactively armchair quarterback the old Astro World thing. Suffice to say, a lot of shit went wrong in many ways. However, I believe the buck ultimately stops with the person holding the mic. I don't agree with that. I think it's shared responsibility between the person holding the microphone, the security at the venue, the person who promotes the event, and frankly, the people that are in the audience. I've seen an awful lot of shenanigans going on in audiences, and then not only is nothing happening to the folks that are doing this, or throwing these stupid fucking kung fu kicks and kicking girls against the head, and knocking kind of innocent bystanders around. When they're doing their pathetic fucking hardcore dancing. But I've then also seen a lot of security kind of stare at this and just kind of let it go on. I don't blame the band in each instance for that. I will say, when I saw some kung fu kicking and some nonsense going on at a Lamb of God show, funnily enough, it was during Devil Driver opening for them, and Des Furor went off on the guy that was doing it, and that pretty much stopped it for the rest of the night. But no, I don't agree with him that it's ultimately just the person holding the mic. I think sometimes when you on stage, for the limited times I've experienced it, I don't think you can frankly see what's going on the floor. And if the band is going wild and crazy, you can try and quiet them down and stop them. But very often, I think the way it looks to a person on stage, it just looks like the people are really responding to the music. I had one incident, this must be like 2004, 2005, where this fucking buffoon at a Cannibal Corpse show was dressed in like steel toe worker boots, like the kind of boots that you would wear on a building site. And he kept on stage diving, and every single fucking time he stage dived, he would come over and kind of hit me on the head, and then hit the people that were with me, which included another girl, hit her on the head. And it was like, I probably copped a couple of bumps and bruises from that. And after like 4 or 5 times of this, it started to piss me off. And I remember him getting on there for stage dive number 6. And staring at me and kind of clasping his hands together like, please catch me, please catch me. And I shook my head and I was like, not today, friend. And he stage dived anyway. And when he stage dived, I gave him a little bit of discipline. And he did stage dive for the rest of the night. Frankly, I'm surprised I would be surprised if he stuck around for the rest of the night. But anyways, the security guard saw that and laughed. So again, like I said, it's shared responsibility. But anywho, so long story short, what old Randall suggests we do here. From personal experience, I can say that from the performer's perspective on stage at a huge festival, it can be very difficult to tell if something's gone wrong in the audience. So again, why he says it's the person on stage's responsibility, then I don't know. The noise of the music, the roar of the crowd, the lights in your face, the thousands of people moving all at once, the groupies stage side left, ready to suck your dick. No, that's not in the article. It makes it very hard to ascertain if there's a problem or if people are just having a good time. If someone is heard screaming, "Stop the show!" at the band on stage, doesn't really work, because unless the entire audience is chanting that, it's just going to blend into all the noise. Waving your hands frantically in the air doesn't really help either. It just looks like more movement in a sea of movement. What does help the audience let the performer know that something has gone wrong in the crowd? A signal. Here are 2 signals I've personally seen from stage that have let me know that someone was injured in the crowd. We then completely stop the show until that person should be removed. A. Arms held in an X above your head. This is a fairly universal signal that means stop. B. The timeout signal. Picture 2, where he gives diagrams of it, yeah. But anyway, so I can imagine that some fucking drunk imbecile will think it's hysterical to now, after reading this, do the timeout signal or do, arms with an X above his head just to see if he can stop the show. So, like I said, I think promoters need to be more responsible. I think there needs to be more security at shows. The security needs to be more vigilant, and they need to kind of be experienced at what they're doing as well. They need to let the crowd go if the crowd, is getting a little energetic. But at the same time, if they see somebody who is legit hurting someone, and you can see it fucking quickly, because there will always be people on the outskirts that start getting pissed off with it, especially like at the bigger shows. There's this divide between the newer generation who pull that, mostly are the ones pulling that sort of shit, and the old guard who, like, I've come here to watch some music and drink a few beers. Maybe I'm going to bang my head to two or three of my favorite songs, mostly the old stuff that'll be played in the encore. But beside that, I ain't doing a fuck. I'm not moving. And they are the ones that normally get a little bit pissed off and then get a little handsy with the guys that are fucking around. So like I said, you can normally see pretty quickly if there's going to be a problem. But anyway, who gives a fuck? Rammstein's new album to arrive before launch of 2022 World Tour. I've said this before and I'm going to say this again. I don't give a shit how much money I have to pay to see Rammstein. When they play in the UK again, whether I have to pay £500 or £1,000, I'm going to every fucking show that they play. The last one that they played in Milton Keynes was literally one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. It says here, Rammstein guitarist Richard Krusper has confirmed that the band's already completed new album will be released before the launch of the group's next world tour. I don't even care what the music sounds like. I mean, they could make a fucking techno album. They could do a record that was produced by the same musical assassin, and by which I mean he assassinates anything good in music, that did this new Korn record, and I would still go to the show. I'll even forgive Richard Krusper for saying something moronic like the rebellion in rock music is kind of over. It's not over. It just depends on where you're looking. Right, folks. I am going to, in fact, actually, I'll mention one more quick thing, and I say this only as a plug for my Terence Hobbs interview. If you've not yet seen it, episode 101, the legendary Terence Hobbs' suffocation appears on Into the Necrosphere in a interview that some have called his best and most entertaining, and probably the only one that you actually ever need to listen to. However, he also appeared on an episode of Landry Audio, where he was quizzed on racial diversity amongst heavy metal musicians, and his response was, I don't know, I think that they're out there. I don't think that they're not. I just think that a lot of them haven't had the time or chance or a band that people have taken notice to say, hey, there's a black guy in the band. You look at Old Entombed, they had a black guy in the band. You look at Hyrax, Howard from Killswitch Engage, you look at Cyclone Temple, another band from Chicago, they had a black guy. Oceano has a black guy. Ling Che has a black guy. Jesus Peace, another band from Philadelphia, fucking cool band, a black guy in the band. Volvadinia from South Africa, a black guy in the band. So he says, so the brothers are out there, man. They're making heavy shit. Don't think they're not. They may not be playing hockey much, but they're still out there. I fucking loved talking to Terence. I think he was such a cool dude, and I would love to have him on the podcast again at some point. I consciously didn't really want to talk about anything race related because I've always, I maybe I'm wrong about this, but I felt, especially with a guy like Terence, he was one of the dudes that I think really broke the glass ceiling for a lot of African American musicians and a lot of black musicians globally. Probably him and the gentleman from Entombed. But I kind of feel like he earned his spot and he earned legendary status off the back of his own merit. And I feel like when you single people out as, oh, this band is a black guy, so we should support them because we support diversity, then I feel that you're denigrating what a guy like Terence has achieved in his life. Because, he is, when it comes to death metal, he's in the top 5 all-time great death metal riff writers. Not only that, but he's also responsible for writing some of the hardest, fucking most badass beatdowns on the face of the earth. So that's kind of why I ignored it. But that being said, it's not something I'll be averse to talking to him about. As I said, I just have a specific view around why I wouldn't necessarily bring that up. One thing that I will say, I don't think I've seen in my in my time going to shows and things like that, I don't think I've ever seen any instances of racism or exclusion. I think the only person that was excluded from shows was me, turning up there looking like fucking Johnny Corporate, having come straight from work. But for the most part, there's, I would say, non-white folks at shows are generally speaking in a minority, but I'm pretty conscious or confident that's probably the same thing could be said of hip hop shows, vice versa. Or maybe not hip hop shows, but certainly grime or certain kinds of music here in the UK. I just think people should be able to do whatever they want, and they should never be excluded from being able to do what they want to do, and they should be supported and embraced in whatever scene they're in. And like I said, for me, Terrence has always been one of my favorite guitarists. One of, now that I've met him, probably one of my favorite people in metal. I think that when he finally hangs the guitar up, I think that man's legacy that he leaves behind is extraordinary. And on that note, I am done with news for this week. And it also brings me to the end of another episode. Remember, I said next week I will be talking to Mikula of Vredensdal about the new record, Silence is Eternal. We do a track-by-track rundown. We talk about a bunch of other stuff. I was a bit of a silly goose throughout that podcast, so you'll see what I mean. But I did squeeze about a good 1 hour and 15 out of him, so it's a fun one. And then I've got a smorgasbord of metal greats or necro greats coming your way over the course of the next few weeks. A few of them are in the process of being confirmed, but I do believe that once they are confirmed, you guys are in for quite the ride as we steer up to the end of 2021. But as we come to the end of this show, I wanted to play out with a band who I think are grossly underrated, and this record in particular is grossly underrated. The band is called Glory or Belly. The album is called Meet Us at the Southern Sign, which, just sidebar, is one of the fucking best black metal album titles ever. Meet Us at the Southern Sign is a cool album. It came out back in 2009. I don't think it ever got its just desserts. And particularly didn't get its just desserts for having, in my opinion, one of the greatest album openers I have ever heard in my life. The song is called Once in a Blood Red Moon. It is my final gift to all of you this week. As I say goodbye, hope all of you stay safe. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks to Dennis for coming on the podcast. And thanks to all of you guys for listening up to the very end. So this one is for you, and I will see all of you bad motherfuckers again next week.